value. So if you live in a 700,000 square foot condo in Toronto, you pay $5,000 in property tax. Juxtapose that $700,000 in Vaughan or Windsor. In Windsor, you're living on a 5-acre farm for $700,000. In Vaughan, you're living in a bungalow with a driveway with a backyard and a barbecue. You're not doing a 35-story elevator ride in the morning or at nighttime in terms of quality of life. So when we do that comparison, wouldn't you say it's unfair to say that someone in Toronto living in 600 square feet condo downtown Toronto pays as much as somebody who's in a bungalow in York region with his or her own driveway? Yes, that $700,000 condo pays a little less in Toronto, but wouldn't you say that that's an unfair comparison in terms of how people live and quality of life? I just want to pick up on a question that was asked earlier by my good friend here, Councillor Burnside from Don Valley East. The councillor for Don Valley East. You know, everybody's on this comparing taxes. You know, Toronto with York, with Vaughan or York or Windsor or Ottawa or Hamilton. I just want to better, and the media's taken it up too, by the way. You know, everybody loves to compare what we pay in relation to others. And I just want to turn the clock back a second. And one of the reasons why we were discouraged early on when I first got elected from doing that. So I was a North York Councillor. We had, 6 cities in Toronto, a metropolitan level of government, 2 school boards, and everybody had direct taxation. School boards taxed, public Catholic, all the cities and municipalities. So the North York tax rate at that time was much, much higher than the old city of Toronto. Much higher. Like in North York, we were paying already about $3,000 in property taxes, whereas in the city of Toronto, a similar property was paying $640.
Well, what's your question?
The question is this.
Okay.
We were discouraged from comparing because we were told that it was unfair to do that. Why? And to turn the clock back, I know this is a little before your time. The reason we were told to not compare was that Toronto, the old city of Toronto, had so much more density. Big buildings, the Eaton Centre, the bank towers, et cetera, and lower kilometerage of roads to resurface, to sewer, to service. And in North York, we had much greater density, much more geography and density, far more spread out, so therefore, much, much more expensive to service. That's why the disparity in tax rates. Wouldn't you say that that argument would still hold water when we compare our density levels to those of Vaughan or York region or Windsor or Hamilton or Ottawa?
To the Speaker, so I obviously can't speak to the discussions that would have been had 20 plus years
ago. These are
the
finance people,
fair enough.
The brainies of the time,
and people I've learned
making up these arguments for us.
Absolutely. I would say when we have looked at the City of Toronto and we've looked at the City of Toronto in comparison to neighboring municipalities, we will note that there are some uniqueness to our challenges. The uniqueness is really around some of our social costs.
But in relation to comparison...
Councillor, allow the staff to answer.
But I just wanted to focus on...
He's trying to answer your question.
We have costs associated with transit. We have costs associated with shelter services that actually make up for some of those challenges that you see.
It gets to my exactly. It gets to my next point. So when we compare Toronto with York Region, for example, transit, here... we pick up the subsidy almost 100%. In York Region, where the subsidy is $6 or $7 or $8 a ride, it's mostly picked up by the province. So it's similar kind of comparison, is it?
So again, when we look at our costs and our challenges compared to other municipalities, you see costs that are unique to the city of over $3 million that don't compare with other municipalities that have to be accounted for.
Let me ask you, let me focus in on something else as well. So when the comparison is done and we do value for value, so if you live in a 700,000 square foot condo in Toronto, you pay $5,000 in property tax. So then you'd have to sort of juxtapose that $700,000 in Vaughan or Windsor. In Windsor, you're living on a 5-acre farm for $700,000, right? In Vaughan, you're living in a bungalow with a driveway with a backyard and a barbecue, right? You're not doing a 35-story elevator ride in the morning or at nighttime in terms of quality of life. So when we do that comparison, wouldn't you say it's unfair to say that someone in Toronto living in 600 square feet condo downtown Toronto pays as much as somebody who's in a bungalow in York region with his or her own driveway? Yes, that $700,000 condo pays a little less in Toronto, but wouldn't you say that that's an unfair comparison in terms of how people live and quality of life?
To the speaker, property taxes are going to be based on the assessed value of the property. That's going to be the comparable factor.
Correct. So when we focus in on assessed value, we get to that. But anyway, back then, we were told, don't make those comparisons because they're foolhardy. They don't make sense. And you would think that that would hold true today, too.
That was your last question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.